Hi, I'm Jennifer from Friends of the Lost Coast, working partners with the Bureau of Land Management. In this set of videos, we're going to look at forests, how they work, how they function, how they maintain from one generation to the next. Forests cover 30% of the land on Earth, and they're constantly changing and evolving. And it's not all about the trees. What we need to do is pay attention. Let's take a look.
When you look at a forest, what do you see? You will find things from tiny flowers to giant ancient trees, but forests don't just happen. Everything you see in a forest is in the process of growing from something tiny into something bigger, older, more full of life. Forests also provide homes for many types of animals. This forest home is their habitat. Humans use the forest as well. Forests are a big part of our human habitat. We use the wood for building most of the homes, furniture, artwork, and paper that we use every day. When we walk through the forest, we move through a centuries-old process in action. Let's take a look at 4 aspects of this process that is in the living forest. 4 parts of the complex process that keeps a forest healthy for ages to come. Giant trees grow from seedlings. To grow, the tiny plants gather nutrients from the soil. But where does this food come from? Fallen trees and other forest litter are broken down by a complex forest recycling service. These are the decomposers. This includes fungi, bacteria, lichens, worms, and bugs, all working to break down big dead stuff into the small parts that will grow new plants. If the decomposers were not always on the job, the forest would be choked with dead stuff. Look carefully in the leaf litter and see telltale signs of the decomposers. Each in their own way, the decomposers eat away at the material on the forest floor, breaking it down into smaller and smaller parts. Discolored scales in leaves are caused by fungi, decomposing the leaves. Other leaves look bleached when fungi attack. Fungi are a huge family in the tree of life with many different species. Fungi are a big part of the decomposer team. They can be found in many forms in our everyday lives. The yeast that causes bread to rise. The mold that grows on the bread. The mildew found in a shower. And those mushrooms on the top of your pizza. Mushrooms are perhaps the most recognizable type of fungi in the forest. What we recognize as a mushroom is the cap, and the stem-like structure is called the stalk. The organism is actually below the surface. The underground portion of the mushroom is called the mycelium, and it can stretch for miles under the forest floor. Mycelia performs critical roles in forest decomposition. Like most fungi, mushroom mycelia break down and consume leaves, needles, and other forest litter. This transforms the litter into fertile organic matter that can be used by plants and other organisms. Mushrooms and mycelia clear the way for the growth of all the living parts of the forest. Fungi can be found in decaying wood and loose duff. They recycle the nutrients all plants need: nitrogen, carbon, phosphorus, and potassium. These types of fungi living in decaying wood are called saprobic. Examples are the orange jelly fungus found on decaying Douglas fir logs, and bird's nest fungus, and the veined cup. Miraculously, mushrooms function as nature's very own unique communication system. The mycelium surrounds the tiny roots of the forest plants, breaking down organic matter into the nutrients plants need. The roots of the plants make chemicals of their own. This sends chemical signals through the mycelium that are picked up by other plants. In this way, one species can respond to the chemical signals of another, altering the chemistry of the forest so that all the plants can make the best use of the available nutrients. This is especially crucial in the use of water. Some species need more water at certain times of year, and the mycelium internet carries the message. One species might send out a chemical message that says, "I have all the water I need, I'm cutting back." Another plant that is in need of water will get this message through the mycelium internet and start to take up more water in response. Talk about a process. The decomposers break down the forest litter. The mushrooms and the mycelium provide nutrients directly to the roots of the forest plants and actually help plants communicate with each other. When you walk in the forest, just imagine what's going on underneath your feet. In the year 2020, California experienced the largest fires in its recorded history. Most of the fires had started by lightning strikes. Strong winds pushed the forest fire into towns. Fires in recent years have been devastating, but it has not always been so. Forest fires, insect and disease outbreaks, drought, heavy winds, and floods have occurred in forests for millions of years. It's part of the natural life cycle of the forest to undergo major disturbances. Most often, they will help the forest to renew itself. Wood is very valuable for humans, so for decades, Smokey the Bear called out to us to stop every forest fire. But fire is a natural part of the forest process. Just like the worms, fungi, and other decomposers, fire recycles the forest litter, but more quickly, providing access to the stored nutrients. While a very hot, raging fire can burn up the forest beyond recovery, a fire that slowly burns through decaying matter on the surface is a direct benefit. These type of fires can open the forest canopy, allowing sunlight through, which stimulates new growth. If a forest is not opened up in some way, new seeds will not get enough sunlight and will struggle to sprout and flourish. Low-intensity fire takes out the dead wood and smaller trees, making it easier for sunlight to pierce the canopy, allowing some species to readily reproduce. The seeds of some species, known as forbs or ephemerals, can only sprout after being exposed to heat. Redbud, morning glory, lupin, and other fire-loving flowers will come to life after a forest fire, bringing color to the area that is rarely seen. Redwood trees have adapted to fire and can survive being burned as long as the fire does not reach the canopy. This type of tree is called a passive pyrophyte. Pyro is the ancient Latin word for fire. Another name for fireworks is pyrotechnics. Uncontrolled fires, often started accidentally by people, can decimate forests. That kind of fireworks we can do without. We all know wildfires will happen, either naturally from lightning or from human activity. As we mentioned, sometimes a fire can actually help the forest. Prescribed burn is a fire that people set intentionally for a specific purpose. Well-planned and managed burns can be incredibly beneficial for forest management. Excess dead matter can be burned carefully. This reduces fuel on the forest floor, keeping a big wildfire from getting out of control. Another firefighting technique is called backburning, and it involves setting a fire in the path of the approaching wildfire. All the flammable material is burned and extinguished. So later, when a wildfire sweeps through, when it reaches the backburn, there's no more fuel left, and it dies out. Fire has long been an important management tool in California. Native Americans have used fire for millennia to cultivate plants for basketry supplies, food resources, and other cultural necessities, and to maintain open forests and woodlands to make travel and communications easier. Prescribed fire is now well recognized as one of the most versatile and cost-effective tools to maintain the health of our forests and wildlands. Ranchers use fire to maintain habitat for wildlife and domestic livestock, and in more recent decades, prescribed burning has been used for fuels reduction, invasive species control, and ecological restoration. Learning from nature and the age-old wisdom of native peoples, fire is now being used to make the forest healthier, and in the process, make the places where we live, close to the forests, even safer. Fire, disease, destructive insects, and clear-cut logging can potentially destroy a forest. But trees, especially redwood trees, have developed some adaptations to withstand many an onslaught. As you walk through a redwood forest, you'll see deep scars from fire on the living trees. Obviously, fire has been in the forest. How did the redwood trees survive? The outer bark of redwood trees can be up to 3 feet thick. The bark insulates them from fires that sweep through the forest floor. They also do not have the flammable sap that other evergreens have, like pine and fir. These qualities keep the fire from spreading to the crown of the tree, the branches high up in the canopy. Bugs can also damage most trees in a big way. But in the bark, redwoods have a lot of a substance called tannin. Bugs don't like tannin, so they don't want to eat the redwood. 2 big problems for wooden buildings are rot and termites. So the resistance to bugs makes redwood lumber a very desirable building product. For nearly 200 years, people have demanded redwood for everything they build with wood. Bridges, houses, and railroads. 95% of the old-growth redwood forests were logged. Around 100 years ago, citizens here in Humboldt County were the first to see the devastation of uncontrolled redwood logging and started a movement to save the redwoods that remained. The world owes these people and their partners throughout the years the deepest appreciation. Without them, all of them, this would not be here. Redwood roots are very shallow, but redwood roots extend out more than 50 feet from the trunk. The trees grow in thick groves, and their roots intertwine. This creates a strong mat that supports all the trees. Growing out of this mat, the trees have the strength to withstand powerful winds and floods. When redwood forests are logged selectively, with only a few in a grove being taken, the remaining trees are able to hold each other up. If a redwood stand is clear-cut, however, it changes the whole dynamic of the area. The forest will take many, many years to recover, if it recovers at all. Redwoods need the moisture from fog and the moderate temperatures near the coast. Without the shade and fog-catching abilities of mature redwoods around them, the young trees won't survive. Most of the redwoods we see in the forest are second growth, young trees growing up naturally in the shadow of bigger, older trees, or trees growing back after the forest was logged. 2 to 4 feet in diameter, these trees are about 50 to 150 years old. That's equivalent to about 2 to 6 years old for a human. Coast redwoods can grow 100 feet in their first 50 years, so they quickly look like grown-ups. Redwoods were well established around the world 200 million years ago. They used to grow throughout western North America and on the coasts of Europe and Asia. Coast redwoods are the tallest trees on the planet. The redwood forests have grown right here on the Pacific coast from Big Sur to southern Oregon for 20 million years. This forest has been here a very long time. Officially, the oldest living coast redwood tree is at least 2,200 years old, but foresters believe some coast redwoods may be much older. When a huge ancient redwood falls over, new trees sprout from the roots of the fallen tree. This can make a ring of trees around the remains of the old one, a fairy ring of trees. Studies show that coast redwoods capture more carbon dioxide from our cars, trucks, and power plants than any other tree on Earth. The redwood forests, along with the cool ocean currents, the regular fog, and the many rivers, create a stable habitat that has a good chance of surviving the worst effects of global warming. Because of these conditions, scientists from the United States Forest Service have called the redwood region a climate refuge. As the climate changes, the redwood forests are one of very few places that can provide a refuge, a safe place for plants and animals to live. The old-growth redwoods have been cut down for human use for a very long time. Compared to what was here 200 years ago, only patches here and there remain. This makes it hard for animals that need lots of territory to thrive. Mountain lions, coho salmon, spotted owls and marble murrelet, the marten, and other species need large swaths of forest that are connected and healthy. Humans need healthy forests as well, and not just for supplying wood. Trees gather carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, helping reduce global warming. And a nice walk in the forest can actually help keep your body and mind relaxed, calm, and healthy. People are animals too, and we are a part of the forest habitat, just like every other animal. Humans will always cut redwood trees. But to truly do our best as part of the forest, it's important to learn about all the processes that build and maintain a forest, especially about the human impact. With more and more knowledge, we can be a better and better forest citizen. This will help all the living things in the forest, from the mushrooms to our family and friends. The two-legged, the four-legged, and the many-legged included. The definition of a climax forest is one that has settled into a condition of relative stability. What does that mean? As we have seen, the earth is always changing, and forests are not immune to that. Whether it's fire, drought, disease, or logging, no forest population can continue forever. However, some forests are better able to resist change, and in our neighborhood, redwood forests are the one. But they haven't always been here. Everything has to start somewhere, and when we're talking about forests, the term used is succession. Think of a volcano erupting. After the lava cools and turns to rock, no plants can exist there. Slowly, lichens and mosses attach to the rocks and start to break them down. This creates the beginning of soil in the area, and small plants, remember the forbs and ephemera from the fire video? They take hold. Then shrubs, small trees, and larger trees can each, in their turn or successively, thrive in that area. As plants die out and fall to the ground, decomposers munch them up to create better and more nutrient-rich soil. As new plants grow, more shade is provided to the area, the soil is more able to sustain life, and larger plants and trees take hold. A climax community is the end result of ecological succession. The climax community is a stable balance of all organisms in an ecosystem and will remain stable unless or until a disaster strikes. After the disaster, succession will start all over again. Depending on the climate of the area, the climax community will look different. In the tropics, the climax community might be a tropical rainforest. Perhaps it will be a hardwood like oak. In northern parts of the world, like the King Range, the climax community might be a coniferous forest. Without disruption, redwoods have maintained their hold for thousands of years. The redwood forests of the North Coast have been here for 20 million years, and humans have inhabited this area for tens of thousands of years. In the last 150 years, humans have managed to cut all but 5% of the old-growth redwoods. And just like the logging that has taken about 95% of the old-growth redwoods, a climax forest doesn't live forever. Climate change, forest fires, drought, disease, infestation, and, of course, human activity can change an area to the point where the climax community can no longer exist. So the climax community isn't necessarily the final community of any habitat. Given time, action, and/or disaster, the populations will change, and perhaps another stable climax community will thrive, making room for the next big thing.